Hey guys, tonight we're going to step into something gentle. Something that feels like laying down a heavy backpack you didn't even realize you were carrying. This is Stories for Sleep, and you're here because part of you wants to rest without the old thoughts circling like late-night reruns. You know that moment when you finally crawl into bed, the lights are off, and your brain suddenly decides it's the perfect time to host a full-blown TED Talk on everything you can't control? Yeah, you wouldn't survive a season of that. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And one more thing. I'd love for you to pause for a second and share in the comments. Where in the world are you watching from? And what time of night is it for you right now? It's always a little magical to see how many of us are lying down together, in different corners of the world, just trying to breathe a little easier. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The way you release at night often defines the way you wake up in the morning. If you fall asleep gripping old stories, your dreams knot themselves around that tension. But if you fall asleep with calm, with trust, with the right teachings, your body remembers what peace feels like. And tonight, we'll begin with the most human challenge of all. Letting go of what was never yours to hold. Carrying other storms. There's a quiet exhaustion many of us carry into bed at night, one that doesn't even belong to us. It's the weight of someone else's storm. Maybe it's your partner's stress from work, your kid's meltdown over homework, or the heavy silence of a friend who isn't doing well. You lay down, ready to rest, but your chest feels tight. Your mind starts spinning, not with your own story, but with theirs. You try to fix it in your head. You replay their words. You think of what you should have said, or could have done, or might do tomorrow. And without realizing it, you've stepped into a role you never auditioned for. The one holding up the sky so no one else has to feel the rain. That's why your shoulders ache, even when your body's been still all day. That's why your sleep feels shallow. You're carrying clouds that were never meant to be yours. Buddhist wisdom points to something very simple but life-changing. Compassion doesn't mean control. To care for someone doesn't mean you have to carry their pain. Think of it like this. If a cloud tried to hold the entire sky, it would collapse. A cloud offers shade, softness, presence, but it was never built to shoulder everything above it. Neither were you. Now imagine this. Your friend comes to you crying. Instantly, your heart aches, and you feel the pull to take their pain away. But what if, instead of absorbing it, you sat with them in stillness? What if you breathed with them, listened without rushing to fix, and trusted that their storm has something to teach them? That is real compassion. That is presence without pressure. It's hard though, isn't it? Because inside there's a voice whispering, if you don't make them feel better, you failed them. But guilt isn't always the voice of love. Sometimes it's just the echo of old conditioning, the belief that love equals sacrifice, that to care you must always be the strong one. But when you give up your peace to absorb someone else's pain, that's not compassion. That's entanglement. And entanglement steals both your freedom and theirs. Take a breath with me now. Inhale, exhale. Notice how even in this moment your body remembers. This emotion is not mine. This pain is not mine. You can care deeply, you can love fiercely, but you don't have to live their sadness for them. When you honor that boundary, you create space for them to grow. You show them respect, the kind of respect that says, I believe in your strength. I trust your path. I'll sit with you, but I won't take this from you. It might not be what they want in the moment. Some people will resist your boundaries. Some may want you to carry their storm because it feels easier, but in time, they'll sense something different in you. A calm that doesn't get shaken, a love that doesn't collapse, a presence that doesn't need to rescue. And when they're ready, that steadiness will help them trust themselves too. This is the hidden wisdom of non-attachment. It's not coldness, it's not turning your back, it's clarity. It's love that trusts instead of controls. Like a tree, your roots can be steady and deep, while your branches still sway with the wind. You can give shade without blocking the sun. You can offer care without replacing their foundation with your own. And tonight, before you drift towards sleep, you might whisper to yourself, "Their emotions are not my responsibility. My peace is not a sacrifice. I can love without carrying. I can care without control." As those words soften in your body, notice the lightness that follows. That's the release you've been craving. And when you stop carrying storms that were never yours, you finally make room to notice the one thing that has always been here, your own breath. And that, my friend, is where we're heading next, the breath as anchor. Because once you've put down the storms of others, you'll need a place to return to, a safe, steady rhythm that's always with you. The breath as anchor. There's something quietly miraculous about the breath. It's so ordinary we forget it's there, yet it's the one companion that never leaves us. You've been breathing since the moment you arrived in this world, and you'll keep breathing until the moment you leave. And in between those two moments, every inhale and exhale is a thread tying you to this life, pulling you gently back whenever the mind starts drifting away. When you've spent all day carrying storms that aren't yours, or when your own emotions rise like a tide that feels too heavy, the breath is what brings you home. Think of it as a lighthouse in the fog. The waves of thought may crash and swirl, but that steady light always waits for you, guiding you back to shore. The Buddha himself pointed to the breath as the most reliable anchor. In the Anapanasati Sutra, the teaching is simple but profound. Notice the inhale, notice the exhale. That's it. No need to chase, no need to fix, no need to perfect. The act of noticing itself is enough. Right now, wherever you are, notice your inhale. Feel it rise. Hold it for just a second, and then let it go. Notice the exhale, the way the body softens, the way the jaw unclenches, the way the chest loosens. Breathing with awareness isn't about forcing calm. It's about remembering it's already here. Your body knows how to rest. Your mind simply needs reminding. It's funny how much of our suffering comes not from the storm itself, but from forgetting the breath. Think of the last time you were anxious. Your breath probably became shallow, quick, tight. It's not the anxiety that made you powerless, it was the forgetting. The moment you return to your breath, the spiral begins to slow. The storm hasn't disappeared, but you've remembered that you're not the storm. You're the sky it moves through. And here's the secret. The breath doesn't judge you. It doesn't shame you for forgetting. It simply waits. No matter how far you wander into thought or fear, the next inhale is there. Patient, steady, ready to welcome you back. Let's try it again. Inhale deeply. Slowly, let it fill your lungs. Then exhale, long and easy, as if you're setting something down you no longer need to carry. Do it again, softer this time. Inhale, exhale. Feel how even a few breaths can shift the weight inside your chest. That shift is real. That's your nervous system remembering what safety feels like. This is why Buddhist monks return to the breath hundreds of times a day. Not to escape life, but to meet it. To return again and again to the only place life actually happens, right here, in this inhale, in this exhale. You don't need hours of meditation to benefit from this. Even 5 minutes of full attention can be sacred. You might even notice that after just a few breaths, your thoughts are still swirling, but they feel a little farther away, like voices outside a closed window instead of inside your head. And in the middle of this practice, I want to invite you into a moment of connection. If something I've said so far has landed with you, if a phrase or an image helped you breathe easier, share it in the comments below. Write down the line that touched you most. Not only does it anchor the teaching deeper in you, but you might also offer that same moment of peace to someone else who needs it tonight. Now, Let's return again. Inhale and feel the coolness of the air as it enters. Exhale and feel the warmth as it leaves. Notice that your breath is not just biology, it's rhythm, it's balance. It's a reminder that everything rises and falls, comes and goes, and you don't need to hold on. Each breath is a small rehearsal of letting go. Inhale trust, exhale control. Inhale presence, exhale resistance. Inhale peace, exhale the need to fix. The more often you practice this, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, the breath becomes your baseline, your safe place. No matter where you are, what you're facing, or who you're with, the breath is your silent refuge. It doesn't demand, it doesn't lecture, it simply waits. And as you rest here tonight, remember, you don't need to silence every thought or chase away every emotion. You only need to return to your breath again and again, until stillness begins to appear on its own. Because once you know how to come back to the breath, you're no longer tossed around by every wave of feeling or thought. You become anchored, and from that anchoring, clarity starts to rise. You begin to notice the subtle difference between guilt and love, between fear and wisdom, between reaction and response. That clarity is what we'll explore next. Because even with the breath as anchor, there's still another voice that whispers inside, the voice of guilt. And learning how to meet that voice with wisdom might just be the most freeing part of all. Guilt and old conditioning, there's a voice that creeps in quietly when you finally start to let go. You're resting in your breath, you feel lighter, and then suddenly, guilt shows up. It whispers things like, you should be doing more. You should be fixing this. If you don't make them feel better, you're failing them. And just like that, peace slips out of reach. Guilt is sneaky because it often wears the costume of love. It tells you that being a good partner, friend, or parent means sacrificing yourself completely. It tells you that to be kind, you must always be the strong one. But here's the truth that Buddhist wisdom shines a light on. Guilt is not always a sign that you're doing something wrong. Sometimes it's just the echo of old conditioning. Think back for a moment. Maybe you were raised to believe that being good meant putting everyone else first. Maybe you learned early that love equals responsibility, that your worth depends on how much weight you can carry. That's not love. That's training. And training can be unlearned. Every time guilt rises up, you have an opportunity. Instead of reacting, you can pause. Ask yourself a simple question. Is this mine to hold? If the answer is no, then you don't need to absorb it. You can let the emotion rise and fall without letting it sink into your body. Try this now. Imagine someone you love is upset. You feel the urge to fix, to rush in, to make it better. Notice that pull in your chest. Now ask softly, is this mine to hold? If it isn't, picture yourself taking a gentle step back, still present, still loving, but not carrying. At first, this feels unnatural. The guilt will flare. Your mind will insist, but if I don't step in, they'll fall apart. If I don't absorb this, I'm letting them down. Those aren't the voices of compassion. They're the voices of fear disguised as love. And the practice here isn't about shutting those voices down. It's about recognizing them. Because once you see guilt for what it really is, it starts to lose its grip. You stop obeying it as if it's the truth. Buddhism reminds us that every being carries their own karma, their own lessons, their own path. To take someone's pain away isn't always kindness. Sometimes it steals the very growth their soul needs. Real compassion doesn't chain you to guilt. It frees you both. So how do you retrain the mind? Slowly, gently. Each time you feel that tightening urge to take on more than what's yours, pause. Feel your breath. Ask, is this mine to hold? Let the guilt rise and fall without following it. Over time, your nervous system learns a new pattern. Like a muscle, it remembers how to move without tension. And here's something beautiful that happens when guilt no longer rules you. Your relationships become more honest. People finally meet the real you, not the performance you've been putting on to make them comfortable. They see the steadiness of someone who loves without needing to control. They feel the respect of someone who trusts them enough to carry their own journey. Take another breath with me. Inhale, exhale. Whisper quietly to yourself, I can care without carrying. I can love without losing myself. My peace is not a sacrifice. And if any part of this resonates with you, drop a line in the comments. Share the moment that hit home, because naming it makes it real, and your words might give someone else the strength to finally put down their own guilt tonight. Notice how much lighter the body feels when guilt loosens its grip. The shoulders drop, the breath deepens, sleep feels closer. You're no longer living under the weight of an old story. You're rewriting it with every inhale and exhale. And this rewriting opens the door to something even deeper, the wisdom of non-attachment. Because once guilt begins to fade, you realize it was only one thread in a much larger web, the habit of clinging. And learning how to loosen that grip, that need to hold, is where the real freedom begins. The power of non-attachment. There's a moment, sometimes small and sometimes overwhelming, when you realize you've been gripping something so tightly that it's draining the life out of you. Maybe it's the hope of fixing someone else's sadness. Maybe it's the belief that if you just try harder, the outcome will bend to your will, and yet the harder you grip, the more exhausted you feel. This is where non-attachment becomes not just a teaching, but a survival skill. Buddhist wisdom has been pointing to this for centuries. Suffering doesn't come from the world itself. It comes from clinging to people, to outcomes, to feelings, even to identities that no longer serve you. The pain isn't in the event. It's in the refusal to let it move. Think about water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips away. But when you hold your hand open, the water lingers, cool against your skin, free to come and free to go. Non-attachment is like that. It's not a rejection of life. It's not apathy. It's simply holding with open hands instead of clenched fists. When you let go of the need to control, something unexpected happens. Your relationships breathe. Your sleep deepens, your presence softens, because you're no longer performing love by carrying every storm. You're offering love by trusting the other person to walk their own path. That kind of love is rare, and it's powerful. Try repeating this quietly, almost like a lullaby to yourself. I can love without clinging. I can care without control. I can be present without being consumed. Let the words echo softly in your chest. Feel how your body responds. A little loosening in the jaw, a little more space in the lungs. That is what non-attachment feels like in real time. Some people hear the word non-attachment and imagine coldness, like shutting down your emotions. But in truth, it's the opposite. When you're not clinging, you can finally feel more deeply because you're not afraid of losing what you love. You love fully, but without fear. You give, but without chains. You show up, but without the need to script how it all unfolds. This doesn't mean you won't feel grief when things end, or sadness when people leave. Non-attachment doesn't erase pain. It transforms it. It allows grief to move through you instead of getting stuck inside you. It allows love to flow freely instead of turning into anxiety about keeping it forever. Here's a simple practice for tonight. As you breathe, imagine placing each attachment onto a leaf. Maybe it's someone's approval. Maybe it's a fear about the future. Maybe it's the weight of yesterday's mistakes. Place each one gently on a leaf, then picture the leaf floating down a calm river, moving away at its own pace. You don't need to push. You don't need to hold. Just let the river carry it. And while you rest in that image, ask yourself, What becomes possible when I stop gripping so hard? That question is powerful because it shifts your focus. Instead of obsessing over what might be lost, you start to notice the freedom that appears when you let go. If you felt that freedom even for a second while listening tonight, write it in the comments. Share what you're letting go of, not as a confession, but as a release. Saying it out loud or writing it down is a way of loosening the grip even more. Take another breath with me now. Inhale slowly. Exhale even slower. With each exhale, feel the body drop deeper into rest. Feel how your peace no longer depends on controlling every detail. Notice how much lighter the heart feels when it isn't bracing to hold everything together. This is the heart of non-attachment, not shutting down, but opening up. Not losing love, but allowing it to move freely. Not abandoning responsibility, but carrying only what is truly yours. It's a kind of quiet courage that says, I trust life enough to stop gripping it so hard. And when you practice this, something else becomes clear. If you're not carrying storms that aren't yours, and you're not chained by guilt or control, then you begin to see more clearly what belongs to others. Their path, their lessons, their karma. And that's exactly where we'll go next. Into the truth that everyone must walk their own road, and that trusting their journey is the highest form of love. Trusting the path of others. There's a moment every caregiver, friend, or partner eventually faces. You watch someone you love stumble, struggle, or hurt, and your whole being wants to rush in, lift them up, and take the pain away. That instinct feels noble, but here's the truth that Buddhist wisdom reminds us of. Every soul carries its own path. Every person has their own karma, their own lessons, their own storms to weather. And no matter how close you are, their pain is not yours to fix. It's hard to sit with that, isn't it? Because love often makes us believe that helping means carrying. We think if we absorb enough of their suffering, they'll finally find relief. But what actually happens is something else. They lose the chance to discover their own strength, and you lose your peace. And that trade helps no one. The teachings remind us that respect is a deeper form of love than rescue. Real respect means you believe in their resilience. It's telling them without words, I trust you to meet your own life. I trust you to find your own lessons. I trust you to walk your own path. That doesn't mean abandoning them. It means being beside them without taking their steps for them. Imagine hiking a steep mountain with someone you love. You want to grab their pack, carry their weight, even drag them up the hill. But if you do, they never learn the strength of their own legs. They never feel the pride of reaching the top on their own. And you, exhausted, collapse under a burden that was never yours. Respect means walking beside them, encouraging, but letting their feet find the way. This is why monks chant phrases like, all beings are the owners of their actions. It's a reminder that growth cannot be borrowed. No one can hand their wisdom to you. You earn it moment by moment, step by step, through your own choices and consequences. Think of the people in your life right now. A child navigating adulthood. A partner wrestling with stress. A friend carrying heartbreak. You want to fix it, smooth it, make it disappear. But ask yourself, what if my job isn't to fix? What if my job is to trust? Trust doesn't mean ignoring. It means sitting with them without judgment. It means holding the space, not the burden. It means loving them enough to let their journey shape them. Because your belief in their capacity may be the exact mirror they need to see their own strength. Try whispering this to yourself. I can be steady without taking control. I can be present without carrying the weight. I can love without needing to rescue. Notice how different that feels in your body. The chest opens, the jaw loosens, the nervous system calms. That's trust settling in. Of course, not everyone will appreciate this at first. Some will want you to carry their sky. Some will resent your boundaries. But over time, what they'll remember is the calm you brought into the room. The steadiness that never demanded. the love that didn't collapse. And when they're ready, they'll rise to meet it. And for you, trusting their path gives you back your life. You're no longer stretched thin, drained by burdens that aren't yours. You sleep deeper, wake clearer, and meet the day lighter because your energy belongs to you again. Take a breath with me now. Inhale, exhale. Say quietly, I release what is not mine. I trust their journey. I walk my own with peace. And if these words resonate with you tonight, pause for a moment and write it down in the comments. Share who you're learning to trust again, not by rescuing them, but by believing in their strength. Your words might be the reminder someone else needs. This trust, this respect, isn't coldness. It's the warmest love there is. The love that says, I believe in you. And once you begin to live like this, you'll notice something powerful. Your care becomes lighter, freer, less tangled. You start to feel like a tree roots deep in the earth, branches moving gently with the wind, offering shade without blocking the sun. And from that place of grounded presence, we step into the next challenge. What happens when the people we love most, our family, our partners, our children, test this teaching more than anyone else? That is where trust meets its greatest test, and where love learns to breathe without control. Family, love, and boundaries. The place where these teachings get tested the most is close to home. It's one thing to practice non-attachment with strangers or distant friends, but when it comes to family, to partners, to children, the pull to carry what isn't yours becomes almost irresistible. Love feels like responsibility. You think, if I don't hold this together, who will? If I don't absorb their pain, how will they survive? But here's where Buddhist wisdom offers a radical reframe. Love that controls, even gently, is still love rooted in fear. Fear that they'll fall apart without you. Fear that you'll lose them if you don't manage everything. Fear that letting go means not caring. But love that trusts, that lets go, that allows others to walk their own path. This is the kind of love that heals. Think of a parent watching their child struggle. The instinct is to swoop in, fix the problem, and shield them from every failure. But if you never let them stumble, they never learn to stand on their own legs. If you always remove the obstacles, they never discover their strength. The same is true in relationships. A partner overwhelmed by stress doesn't always need you to solve it. Sometimes they need you to sit beside them, breathe with them, and trust them to find their way through. Boundaries in love aren't barriers. They're bridges. They protect the connection by keeping it honest. They allow both people to be free in each other's presence, not chained by silent expectations. When you say, I love you, but I will not carry your storm, what you're really saying is, I trust you enough to live your life. That's not distance, that's respect. There's an image I want you to hold in your mind. A tree standing tall in a field. Its roots go deep, steady, and unshaken, while its branches sway with the wind. It offers shade, but it doesn't block the sun. It provides shelter, but it doesn't replace the earth beneath your feet. You can lean on it for support, but it doesn't collapse under your weight. That is the image of love, with boundaries, strong, flexible, nurturing, but never smothering. And when you love like this, something beautiful happens. The people around you feel freer. They sense that your presence isn't heavy, isn't filled with silent pressure. They feel seen, not managed. And in that space, they begin to grow. Your child learns resilience. Your partner learns trust. Your family learns that love can hold them without caging them. Of course, this isn't easy. At first, you may feel guilt for not rushing in. You may feel selfish for protecting your peace. But over time, you'll see the shift. Love doesn't shrink when you set boundaries. It expands. Because what you offer is no longer tangled with fear. It's clean, it's clear, it's real. Take a breath with me now. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. Whisper quietly to yourself, I can love with trust. I can care with freedom. I can be steady without control. Notice how the body responds. The heart feels softer. The breath moves easier. This is what love feels like when it isn't bracing for impact. If you're listening right now and this resonates, I invite you to share in the comments. Tell me one boundary you're learning to hold, not out of distance, but out of love. Your story might be the reminder someone else needs tonight. As you drift deeper into this practice, remember that true love doesn't say, you're helpless without me. True love says, I believe in you. I trust your strength. I'm here, but I don't need to carry you. That kind of love doesn't weigh down, it lifts up. And as this idea takes root inside you, we're about to open the door to something even older, something timeless. The words of the Dhammapada, a text that whispers across centuries, reminding us to let go of past, present, and future. A reminder that peace isn't found in gripping, but in release. That's where we'll go next. The Dhammapada reminder. There's an old line in the Dhammapada, one of the most treasured collections of Buddhist teachings. Let go of the past, let go of the future, let go of the present. With a heart free of grasping, you will find peace. At first, it sounds impossible. How do you let go of everything past, present, and future? Aren't those the very threads that make up your life? But if you sit with it quietly, you'll see the wisdom hidden inside. The past is already gone. Yet how often do you carry it like a backpack full of bricks? Regrets, what-ifs, the words you wish you could take back, the chances you didn't take. You replay them at night, as if rehearsing them could change the outcome. But the past does not bend to rehearsal. It only weighs you down. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means no longer dragging yesterday's stories into today. And then there's the future. It hasn't arrived, but your mind treats it like a puzzle that must be solved before you can rest. You think about tomorrow's deadlines, next month's bills, next year's uncertainties. You try to arrange every possibility so nothing can surprise you, but life doesn't follow your script. The more you cling to the future, the more restless you feel. Letting go doesn't mean you stop planning. It means you stop tying your peace to outcomes that don't exist yet. Even the present, as the teaching says, can become a trap when you grip it too tightly. You try to freeze perfect moments, capture them, hold them still, or you obsess over what isn't right in this very second, demanding it be different. But the present, too, is always moving. Each breath is born, lives, and passes away. To let go of the present is to stop demanding that this moment last forever. It's to experience it fully while it's here and then release it when it changes. So when the Dhammapada says let go of past, present, and future, it isn't telling you to detach from life. It's inviting you to stop clinging to time altogether. To rest in something deeper than memory, expectation, or even this second. To rest in awareness itself. The awareness that watches the past fade, the future approach, the present flicker, and remains steady through it all. Take a slow breath now. Inhale gently, exhale even softer. Whisper to yourself, I don't need to hold the past. I don't need to grip the future. I don't need to freeze this moment. I can let time flow through me like water and still be whole. Feel how those words soften the grip inside your chest. And if there's one part of this teaching that resonates with you, write it down in the comments. Maybe it's a reminder to let go of regrets. Maybe it's the courage to stop worrying about tomorrow. Maybe it's simply the idea that peace is possible right now. Sharing it will not only anchor the lesson in your heart, it might help someone else release what they've been carrying. What happens when you begin to live like this? You become lighter. The past no longer drags you backward. The future no longer pulls you forward. The present no longer traps you in fear of losing it. You begin to move differently, slower, softer, more present, but less burdened. You start to see that peace was never about controlling time. It was about loosening your grip on it. And this loosening opens up something deeper still. Because once you stop clinging to time, you start to notice what has been here all along. The still water beneath the waves, the depth of your own mind that never stirs no matter how wild things get above. That's where we'll go next. Into the image of still water, the teacher that shows us clarity only when it is calm. Still water as teacher. Picture a lake on a windy day. The surface ripples, the waves scatter light in broken patterns, and nothing is reflected clearly. That lake is like the restless mind always stirred by thought, judgment, and fear. You can look into it, but the image you see is distorted. Now imagine that same lake on a calm morning. No breeze, no movement. The surface is so still it becomes a perfect mirror, reflecting trees, sky, even the smallest details with flawless clarity. That is what happens inside you when stillness begins to settle. Buddhism often returns to this image because it speaks to something universal. We all know what it feels like to live on the surface of the water, battered by the waves of stress and memory. The phone buzzes, someone snaps at you, an old thought rises up, and suddenly you're spinning, convinced the storm is who you are. But beneath that surface, there is always another layer, a depth untouched by wind, a place inside that doesn't stir, no matter how wild things get above. Still water doesn't mean nothing is happening. Life continues, emotions rise, thoughts appear, but stillness means you no longer confuse those passing waves with your identity. You are not the storm, you are the lake. You are the depth that remains even as the surface shifts. Right now, take a breath. Inhale slowly. Exhale softer. Imagine yourself as that lake. Notice the ripples of thought, but don't chase them. Watch them form and fade, like wind touching the surface, but remember, they never reach the bottom. Your depth remains clear, steady, undisturbed. This is why meditation isn't about forcing silence. You can't wrestle the waves into stillness. You can only stop stirring the water. You can only allow the dust to settle by leaving it alone. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Stillness arrives not as something you create, but as something you uncover. Something that was always there beneath the noise. Think of the last time you sat quietly and suddenly felt a wave of peace. Unplanned, unexpected. That was your still water showing itself. It wasn't manufactured, it was remembered. The more you practice letting go, the more quickly you return there. And this return changes everything. In stillness, clarity appears. You begin to see situations for what they really are, not for the story your mind tells. You notice that anger is just energy moving through, not proof that you're broken. You notice that sadness is a wave, not an identity. You notice that even joy is passing, not something to cling to. Stillness teaches you to see without grasping. Whisper this softly. I am not the surface. I am the depth. I am not the storm. I am the stillness beneath. Feel how different that truth is when you breathe it into your body. And if this image of the lake resonates with you tonight, share it in the comments. Write I am the lake as a reminder to yourself and as a gift to others who might need to hear it. Sometimes the simplest images carry the deepest truth. As you rest deeper into this awareness, you may notice a shift in how you meet life. Instead of reacting to every ripple, you pause. Instead of chasing clarity, you allow it to come. Instead of panicking at the storm, you remember the depth that never moves. That memory is freedom. That memory is peace. And as you let this image guide you, we'll take the next step on our journey. Because if still water teaches us clarity, meditation becomes the way we train ourselves to return to that depth again and again. That is where we're headed next. Learning to see meditation not as escape, but as training for stability, a daily practice that anchors you when life tries to pull you away. Meditation as training. So many people think of meditation as a kind of escape, like putting life on pause while you hide away from the noise. But that isn't the heart of it. Meditation isn't running away. It's training. It's the gym for your mind. The practice field where you strengthen the ability to stay steady no matter how chaotic things get outside. Imagine an athlete who only trains on game day. It wouldn't work. The pressure would overwhelm them. They'd stumble, not because they lacked talent, but because they never built the muscle memory. In the same way, meditation isn't about sitting in silence once in a while and hoping it changes everything. It's about returning to the practice again and again, training your awareness until steadiness becomes second nature. When you sit down, even for 5 minutes, you give yourself a chance to rehearse, not reacting. You notice the thoughts, rising memories, to-do lists, little worries. At first, the mind screams that you're failing. Why can't I focus? Why am I still thinking? But meditation isn't about stopping thought. It's about no longer chasing it. You let the thoughts appear. You let them pass, and slowly, something shifts. You realize you don't have to move with every wave. Each breath becomes an anchor. Each pause between inhale and exhale becomes a reminder. I am not my thoughts. I am the one who notices them. This shift alone changes your life, because the world will always send storms your way. Arguments, disappointments, losses. But if you've trained in stillness, you can sit in the storm without losing your ground. Think of a tree again. The wind howls, but the roots hold. Meditation is how you grow those roots inside yourself. Not to resist life, but to meet it without fear. Try this with me right now. Close your eyes if you can. Notice your breath. Don't force it. Just follow it. Inhale gently, exhale slowly. When a thought appears, don't fight it. Don't cling to it. Just watch it pass, like a cloud drifting across the sky. Return to the breath. Inhale. Exhale. That's it. That's the training. At first, your mind will argue. It will tell you this is useless, that nothing is happening, but trust the process. Each return to the breath is like lifting a weight. Each moment of noticing without reacting builds a new kind of strength. Over time, the habit of panic weakens. The grip of fear loosens. The mind remembers what stillness feels like, and it returns there more easily. And here's the beauty. You don't need perfection. You don't need hours of sitting. Consistency matters more than intensity. Even 5 minutes a day of full attention can rewire the nervous system. That's why so many teachers say, just return. No matter how distracted you feel, no matter how restless, the victory is in coming back. Now, if something in this practice tonight has already helped you slow down, share it in the comments. Write one word that describes what you're feeling right now. Calm, steady, lighter, softer. That single word might be the encouragement someone else needs to try meditation for themselves. The world outside won't stop being loud, but meditation shows you how to stop mistaking that noise for who you are. It reminds you that clarity is already inside, waiting beneath the surface. You don't force stillness, you allow it. And in that allowing, everything begins to shift. So as you rest deeper tonight, remember that every breath is a chance to train. Every inhale, every exhale is practice for the moments when life feels overwhelming. And the more you train, the more you notice. Clarity starts to return. The mind sharpens, like a lake becoming clear when the ripples fade. And that is where we're heading next. The teaching of samatha, the calming of the waters, and the gentle way stillness rises when you stop demanding it. Samatha. Calming the waters. There's a practice in Buddhism called samatha, which simply means calming the mind. Not silencing it by force, not wrestling it into submission, but letting it settle the way a glass of cloudy water clears when you stop stirring it. At first glance, it seems too simple. How could just sitting, breathing, and allowing ever change the storms inside? But that is the paradox. The more you push for calm, the further it runs. The moment you stop demanding stillness, it begins to arrive on its own. Think of the last time you tried to sleep, but couldn't. You told yourself, relax, but the harder you tried, the more restless you became. Peace doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to space. When you give your mind permission to rest, it remembers how to do so. That's the heart of samatha. Right now, try something with me. Inhale gently, letting the breath fill your lungs. Pause for a moment, then exhale slowly, softer than before. Don't force the breath. Let it move the way a wave moves on its own. If thoughts appear, and they will, don't scold yourself. Just notice them and let them pass. Every time you return to the breath, the water of the mind clears a little more. And here's the beauty. Thoughts are not the enemy. Emotions are not the enemy. Even pain is not the enemy. The only thing that keeps them sharp is forgetting that you are more than all of them. When you remember that, when you sit like still water beneath the storm, you start to see clearly again. The problem was never the waves. It was believing the waves were you. Samatha teaches patience. The calm doesn't arrive instantly. It unfolds slowly, like dusk settling into night. But if you trust the practice, you begin to notice subtle changes. The body loosens, the jaw unclenches, the nervous system begins to unlearn panic. You stop being pulled in every direction by old habits. Instead, you find yourself anchored, steady, rooted. Whisper this quietly now. I don't need to chase stillness. I only need to allow it. I don't need to silence my thoughts. I only need to stop following them. Feel the shift inside as those words take root. If this reminder helps you, share it in the comments. Write down the phrase that spoke to you most, because when you put it into words, you anchor it not just in your mind, but in your body. And someone else reading may discover the same release through you. The Buddha once said the mind is like a lake. When agitated, nothing is reflected clearly, but when still, everything becomes visible. That's what samatha offers. Not escape, but clarity. Not a blank mind, but a sharp one. When the waters calm, you begin to see life for what it is, not through the distortion of fear or judgment. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, let the practice continue gently. No forcing, no gripping, just breathing and allowing. And notice how much lighter the world feels when the waters begin to settle. Because once you've tasted that clarity, you'll see why the teachings speak of stillness before wisdom. Without calm, perception is clouded. But with calm, the truth shines through, and that truth is what we'll step into next. The reflection of the lake itself, the way still water mirrors reality without distortion, showing us the world as it truly is. The lake reflection. Imagine standing by a lake at dawn. The air is cool, the world is quiet, and the surface of the water is perfectly still. Look down, and what do you see? Not ripples, not distortions, but a mirror. Trees, sky, even your own face reflected with startling clarity. This is the gift of stillness. When the waters of the mind calm, reality reflects itself without twisting. You see things as they are, not as your fears or cravings make them appear. Buddhism has always leaned on this image because it teaches without words. When the mind is agitated, everything looks distorted. Anger makes small problems feel enormous. Fear makes the future look darker than it is. Desire paints illusions that don't hold up in the light of day. But when calm arrives, like a lake at dawn, the truth reveals itself. Not because you forced it, but because you allowed space for it to appear. This clarity isn't about perfection. You'll still have thoughts, you'll still feel emotions, but you won't mistake them for the whole picture anymore. A thought rises like a ripple on the lake. Then it passes, and beneath it, the reflection remains steady. A sadness comes, A joy comes, a memory comes, and each one leaves. What stays is the still water itself, your awareness, untouched and clear. Try this with me now. Close your eyes if you can. Picture yourself as that lake. Inhale deeply, as though filling the water with light. Exhale slowly, letting the surface settle. Notice the thoughts that ripple across, but don't chase them. Just let them come, let them go. With each breath, the reflection sharpens. With each breath, clarity deepens. This is why calm isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. Without stillness, you can't see clearly, and decisions made from a restless mind often lead to more pain. But when you return to the lake inside you, when you let the surface settle, wisdom rises on its own. You start to sense what feels right, what feels true, without overthinking. You begin to trust the reflection, because it comes from calm, not chaos. Whisper softly to yourself, "When I am still, I see clearly. When I am calm, wisdom reflects itself. I don't need to chase answers. I only need to settle into stillness." And if this picture of the lake speaks to you, write it in the comments. You could simply type, "I am the reflection," as a reminder that clarity lives inside you already. Your words might help someone else remember their own stillness tonight. As you rest here, notice how your body feels. Shoulders lighter, breath deeper, the mind softer. It's not that the world outside has changed. It's that your waters have settled enough to see it without distortion. This is the quiet gift of reflection, seeing without clinging, perceiving without panic. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Stillness is no longer something you chase. It becomes the way you live. You move through the world with a mind like clear water, responding instead of reacting, observing instead of grasping. Life feels different when it reflects itself without the ripples of fear. So tonight, let yourself sink deeper into that calm. Let the lake inside you hold its mirror steady. And as you drift into that stillness, we'll step into the next lesson together. How to practice non-reactivity, the art of feeling fully without being swept away. The gentle discipline of remaining the lake even when storms pass overhead. Practicing non-reactivity. Picture this. You're sitting quietly, maybe even calm, when suddenly something small happens. A comment from a partner, a tone in someone's voice, a thought about work tomorrow. And instantly, your chest tightens, your jaw clenches, and your whole body is ready for battle. That's reactivity. It's the mind's habit of leaping into defense or control before you've even had a chance to breathe. And it's exhausting. Buddhist practice offers another way. Non-reactivity doesn't mean you stop feeling. It doesn't mean you become numb. It means you give yourself the space between stimulus and response. A gap where you can see clearly before you act. It's the discipline of being the lake, not the ripple. Think about fire. When a spark lands on dry grass, it ignites instantly, but if it falls on still water, it fizzles out. Reactivity is dry grass fast, hot, consuming. Non-reactivity is water cool, steady, unshaken. The spark still falls, but it doesn't set you on fire. Right now, take a slow breath. Inhale deeply. Exhale softly. Imagine the sparks of the day landing on your awareness. Each one makes a sound, maybe even a splash, but the water absorbs it without burning. That's the strength of non-reactivity. It's not weakness, it's resilience. Of course, this takes practice. At first, the gap between trigger and reaction feels impossibly small. Someone says something sharp, and before you know it, you've snapped back. But every time you return to the breath, every time you pause before answering, you stretch that gap a little wider. Over time, that pause becomes natural. Instead of being dragged by your emotions, you witness them. You feel the heat of anger, but you don't lash out. You feel the pull of fear, but you don't collapse. You feel the ache of sadness, but you don't drown in it. This is not detachment in the cold sense. It's freedom. Freedom to choose instead of being controlled by old habits. Freedom to act with clarity instead of reflex. That's the difference between living like dry grass and living like water. Whisper this gently now. I can feel without being consumed. I can notice without being ruled. I can pause before I move. Let those words soften inside your body. Feel the release in your shoulders, the ease in your breath, and if this idea touches you, share it in the comments. Write the word pause. That single word might remind someone else tonight that they don't have to react instantly to everything life throws their way. They can pause, they can breathe, they can choose. As you settle deeper, imagine how different your life could feel with this practice. Arguments soften before they escalate. Worries lose their grip before they spiral. Even joy feels lighter, because you no longer clutch at it in fear of losing it. Life becomes more spacious when you stop reacting to every ripple. This is why meditation is called training. Each time you sit in stillness, you rehearse non-reactivity. Each breath is a chance to notice without jumping, to witness without gripping. And the more you practice, the more that habit carries into daily life. So tonight, as you drift, let yourself rest in the space between. Inhale gently, exhale softly, and let that pause remind you that you are more than your reactions. You are the awareness holding it all. And as we move forward, we'll step into a story that illustrates this even more vividly. A story of the Buddha himself and his encounter with Mara, the embodiment of temptation and fear. Because in that meeting, the Buddha didn't fight, didn't react, and didn't run. He simply sat, and in that stillness, he showed the deepest meaning of reactivity. That's where we'll go next. Mara visits the Buddha. There's an old story told in many monasteries. On the night of his enlightenment, the Buddha sat beneath the Bodhi tree, determined not to rise until he understood the truth of suffering. But as the night deepened, Mara appeared. Mara wasn't a demon in the way we think of demons. He was something more subtle. He was temptation. He was fear. He was the embodiment of every distraction the mind throws at us when we're on the edge of clarity. Mara sent armies of doubt. He sent storms of desire. He whispered, "Who do you think you are to sit here? You're not strong enough. You don't deserve awakening. Come chase pleasure instead. Come escape instead." And each time, the Buddha didn't fight. He didn't run. He didn't even argue. He simply noticed. He said softly, "I see you, Mara." And then he stayed seated. That's the essence of non-reactivity in practice. The thoughts, the fears, the cravings, they still appear. But when you stop wrestling them, when you stop believing them, they lose their power. Mara didn't vanish because the Buddha shouted him away. He faded because the Buddha refused to play his game. Imagine doing that in your own life. A thought comes, "You'll never be enough." Instead of spiraling, you whisper, "I see you, Mara." A craving appears. "If I just buy this, eat this, do this, I'll finally feel whole." Instead of chasing, you breathe and say, "I see you, Mara." Fear rises before a decision. What if everything goes wrong? You sit back and notice, "I see you, Mara." In that moment, the grip loosens. The thought loses weight. The fear fades. This doesn't mean the voices won't come back. They will. Mara visited the Buddha many times after that night, but each time the Buddha responded the same way, with awareness, with steadiness, with a quiet smile. He knew the trick now. He knew that reactivity gives Mara strength, but presence makes him powerless. Take a slow breath with me now. Inhale deeply, exhale gently, whisper inside, "I see you, Mara." And I choose to stay seated. Feel how different it is when you don't react, when you don't run. The body softens, the storm passes, the clarity remains. And if this story speaks to you tonight, write "I see you, Mara" in the comments. Let it be both a reminder to yourself and a message to others listening with you that fear, doubt, and craving don't have the final word. Awareness does. When you start to live like this, life changes in subtle but powerful ways. The things that used to throw you into panic don't control you anymore. The temptations that used to feel irresistible begin to fade. Even fear starts to lose its edge because you know it for what it is, a visitor, not a master. And here's the beautiful truth. You don't need to fight every thought. You only need to recognize it. You don't need to win against Mara. You only need to see him clearly and stay seated under your own tree. As you rest into this story, let it remind you that your stillness is stronger than your storms. That noticing is more powerful than fighting. That presence itself is victory. And as we move forward, we'll step into another image, a moment when life itself snaps the thread you thought you needed to hold. Because sometimes, the breaking isn't a failure at all. Sometimes, when the string finally gives way, that's where freedom begins. That is where we'll go next. The thread snaps. There's a moment in life that feels like disaster. But in time, you realize it was freedom. It's the moment the thread snaps. Maybe it was a relationship you tried so hard to hold together, even when every fiber of your being was tired. Maybe it was a job you clung to, convinced it was your identity, until suddenly it was gone. Maybe it was a dream you carried for years, only to watch it unravel in your hands. At first, the breaking feels unbearable, but often, it's the very thing that sets you free. Buddhist teachings remind us that all conditioned things are impermanent. Nothing stitched together by time can last forever. And yet, we spend so much energy trying to keep every thread tight, every connection unbroken, as if we could hold life still by sheer force of will. But when the string finally snaps, we see the truth. We were never in control, and that's not tragedy, it's revelation. Think about a kite tied to a string. You pull and pull, terrified of losing it, thinking the string is what keeps it safe. But sometimes the string snaps. And instead of crashing, the kite soars higher, carried by the wind, free of your grip. What you thought was holding it together was also holding it back. The same is true in our lives. That relationship, that role, that old identity, it may have once been beautiful. But when it no longer fits, clinging only creates suffering. The break, painful as it feels, makes space for something new. Without the snapped thread, you might never discover the sky that was waiting for you all along. Right now, take a slow breath. Inhale deeply, exhale gently. Whisper softly to yourself. The breaking is not the end. The breaking is the beginning. What falls apart makes space for what can rise. Let the words move through your chest, loosening the grip you've been holding. At first, your mind will resist this. It will replay the loss, the regret, the what-ifs. That's natural. The habit of clinging runs deep, but each time you notice yourself gripping again, return to the breath. Remember the kite, remember the wind, remember that the thread snapping didn't end the flight. It began it. If you've lived through a moment like this, share it in the comments. Write about a time when something broke and in hindsight, you realized it was a doorway to freedom. Your story might be the mirror someone else needs tonight to see that their own breaking isn't failure. It's transformation. This doesn't mean you won't grieve. Loss deserves its tears. The snapping of a thread can ache deeply, especially when it's tied to love. But grief itself can be a teacher. It shows you what mattered, what touched your life, what was real. And then, like every wave, it passes, leaving behind the space for growth. Take another breath with me now. Inhale, exhale, Imagine one thread in your life that you've been pulling too tightly. See it in your mind, and now, picture it snapping. Not with violence, but with relief. Feel the weight drop. Feel the freedom rise. Notice the sky opening, wide and infinite. The thread snapping is not life betraying you. It's life reminding you that freedom doesn't come from control. It comes from trust. Trust that even in the breaking, something larger is carrying you. Trust that the wind knows how to lift you higher than your string ever allowed. And this is the path we'll walk next. Because once the thread is gone, you face the question, what carries you now? And the answer is both simple and profound. It's not the string you thought you needed. It's the wind itself. That's where we're going. The image of the kite without strings, soaring because it finally trusts the air beneath it. The kite without strings. Imagine a kite, bright against the blue sky. At first it rises only because of the string in your hand. You guide it, you tug it, you control it. You believe that string is what keeps it alive. But then, snap. The string breaks. For a moment your heart drops. You think the kite will plummet. Yet instead, it soars higher, dancing with the wind, moving freely in ways it never could while tethered. That is the paradox of letting go. What feels like loss can become liberation. We spend so much of life clutching strings. Strings of identity, who we think we're supposed to be. Strings of relationships, who we think we must hold together. Strings of plans, how we think life has to unfold. And like the person flying the kite, we convince ourselves that without these strings, everything will collapse. But often the truth is the opposite. The strings can limit more than they protect. Buddhist wisdom calls this attachment. The belief that safety comes from control. But control is fragile, like thread fraying in your hands. The moment you loosen your grip, the fear rushes in. Without this, who am I? Without this, what happens next? And yet, when you dare to release, you discover something unexpected. The wind itself has been waiting to carry you. Take a slow breath. Inhale deeply, exhale gently. Whisper softly, I don't need to grip to stay afloat. I can trust the wind. I can trust life itself. Feel how those words settle into your body. Notice the way your shoulders relax when you no longer imagine yourself as the one holding it all together. Of course, trust is not easy. The mind wants certainty. It wants to know where the kite will land, how long the wind will last, what tomorrow will look like. But certainty is the illusion. The reality is movement, change, flow. The kite is alive because of the wind, not because of the string. And in the same way, your life is carried not by your grip, but by the greater currents you cannot control. Think of a time when something you clung to slipped away. A job, a plan, a relationship. At first, it felt like free fall. But looking back, maybe it was the moment you found a new path, met someone new, or discovered strength you didn't know you had. The wind carried you even when you thought you were falling. If this story of the kite touches you, write it in the comments. Share what string you're learning to release, what part of life you're beginning to trust to the wind. Your words may be the sign someone else needs tonight to loosen their grip. Take another breath with me. Inhale slowly, exhale softer. Picture yourself as the kite. The string has snapped. Instead of falling, you're soaring, higher, freer, carried by something larger than yourself. Notice how your body feels when you stop imagining you're the one responsible for every gust of wind. Relief, space, peace. This is the essence of surrender in practice. Not giving up, but giving over. Not collapse, but trust. You stop living as though every ounce of survival depends on your grip. You begin to see that life itself, like the wind, has been holding you all along. And here's where the teaching deepens. Because once you trust the wind, once you release the string, you start to notice another truth. That everything you cling to, every string, Every form is temporary. Even the strongest attachments are subject to change. The kite doesn't stay in the sky forever. The wind shifts. The day passes. Impermanence is woven into it all. And that is our next step. Learning to see impermanence not as tragedy, but as the natural rhythm of life. Impermanence. The bowl in the rain. There's an image used by many teachers in the Buddhist tradition. Picture a bowl left outside during a storm. The rain fills it slowly, drop by drop. For a while, it seems endless. You think, this bowl will always hold water. This is how it is now, and how it will always be. But then, under the heat of the sun, the water begins to evaporate. Day by day, the bowl empties. What was once full is now dry. This is impermanence. Nothing lasts, not joy, not sorrow, not even the most ordinary moment of life. At first, this truth can feel heavy. We want the things we love to last forever. We want the people we care for to remain by our side, unchanged. We want the moments of peace, laughter, and intimacy to be preserved like pressed flowers in a book. And when they fade, we feel betrayed, as if life has stolen something from us. But impermanence isn't betrayal, it's simply the rhythm of existence. The bowl fills, the bowl empties, and both are part of the same story. Think about your own life. The times of joy, graduations, weddings, quiet evenings with someone you love. They all passed, and yet, so did the darker times. Heartbreak, illness, grief, nights you thought you'd never get through. Both joy and sorrow obey the same law. They arise, they stay for a while, and they pass. This is the secret comfort of impermanence. Nothing lasts forever. Not the pain, not the struggle, not even the storm you're in right now. Take a slow breath. Inhale gently. Exhale softly. Whisper to yourself, this too shall pass. The bowl fills, the bowl empties. Nothing stays forever. And that is okay. Notice how those words land in your body. A loosening in the chest, a little more ease in the breath. Impermanence, instead of frightening you, can actually be a relief. Because when you accept that nothing lasts, you stop clinging so hard. You savor the good while it's here, without the desperate need to trap it. You meet the painful with more courage, knowing it won't define you forever. Impermanence teaches you to hold life gently, with open hands instead of clenched fists. If this truth speaks to you, write it in the comments. Maybe type, the bowl fills, the bowl empties, as a reminder to yourself and others that change is not the enemy. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs tonight to loosen their own grip. And here's the beautiful twist. Impermanence is not just loss, it's also possibility. Because nothing stays the same. Healing is always possible. Renewal is always possible. The dry bowl can be filled again by the next rain. The broken heart can learn to open once more. The darkest night eventually yields to dawn. Change is not something to fear. It's the very thing that makes growth possible. Take another breath with me now. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly. Imagine yourself as the bowl. Feel the rain filling you, drop by drop, with love, with joy, with experience. And then imagine the sun slowly emptying you again, making space for the next rain to come. Neither state is wrong. Both are part of the dance. Both are necessary. Impermanence is not here to punish you. It's here to teach you how to live, to remind you that grasping only creates suffering, to invite you to rest in the flow instead of resisting it. And as you let that truth settle inside you tonight, we'll step into another teacher that walks hand in hand with impermanence. Grief. Because when something precious changes or slips away, grief rises naturally. But grief, too, has its own wisdom to offer. And that is where we'll go next. Grief as teacher. Grief has a way of arriving uninvited. It shows up in the middle of the night, in the quiet moments, in the songs and places that remind you of what is gone. It can feel like a weight pressing on the chest, like a tide that never stops rising. Many people try to push it away, to hide it, to tell themselves, I should be over this by now. But Buddhist wisdom invites us to treat grief differently, not as an enemy to conquer, but as a teacher to sit beside. Why is grief so powerful? Because it only exists where love once lived. You don't grieve what never mattered. You grieve because your heart has touched something or someone deeply, and that connection has shifted or ended. In this way, grief is proof of your capacity to love. It's a reminder that you've lived fully enough to be touched, to be changed, to be broken open. Imagine grief not as a storm meant to drown you, but as rain meant to soften the earth. It hurts, yes. It soaks you to the bone, but it also nourishes. It makes the soil of your heart fertile enough to grow compassion, empathy, and resilience. Without grief, you might never understand the depth of another's pain. With it, you begin to carry tenderness wherever you go. Take a slow breath now. Inhale deeply, exhale softly. Whisper to yourself, my grief is love with nowhere to go. My grief is proof that I have cared. Notice how different it feels to honor grief instead of resisting it. The weight may still be there, but it shifts from something suffocating to something sacred. Of course, grief doesn't run on a timetable. It comes in waves. One day you feel lighter, the next you're pulled under again. This is normal. Healing doesn't move in a straight line, and the teachings remind us, just as joy is impermanent, so is sorrow. Even the deepest ache eventually softens. Even the heaviest tide eventually recedes. If this resonates with you tonight, share it in the comments. Write about someone or something you carry in your grief. You don't have to tell the whole story. Just a word, a name, even a symbol. Your acknowledgement may give another listener permission to honor their own grief without shame. Here's a gentle practice for when grief feels overwhelming. Place your hand on your chest. Feel the rise and fall of your breath. Each inhale says, I am still here. Each exhale says, I release a little more. You don't have to let go all at once. You don't have to force closure. Just one breath at a time. One soft release at a time. In this way, grief becomes less about holding on and more about learning to live with tenderness. Less about denying the pain and more about letting it shape you into someone who understands the fragility of life and the beauty hidden in that fragility. Take another breath. Inhale. Exhale. Imagine grief as a guest sitting beside you. You don't need to push it away. You don't need to entertain it endlessly. Just acknowledge it. Let it stay for as long as it needs. And trust that one day, when its teaching is complete, it will rise and leave quietly on its own. Grief, in its strange way, teaches gratitude, because it shows you that nothing can be taken for granted. Every moment matters precisely because it won't last. And when you live with that awareness, your love becomes more present, your joy more vibrant, your care more real. And as you let that truth sink deeper tonight, we'll move into the next challenge that so often accompanies grief. The longing for closure, the restless chasing of answers we may never receive. Because sometimes what keeps us awake at night isn't just the loss itself, but the haunting echo of what we never got to resolve. That's where we'll go next. Chasing echoes. One of the hardest parts of grief isn't always the loss itself. It's the lack of closure. The unanswered questions, the conversations that never happened, the why that lingers like an echo in an empty room. You replay the moment over and over, hoping somehow the ending will change, hoping the silence will finally give you the answer you crave. But echoes never resolve themselves. They only fade when you stop chasing them. Buddhism reminds us that craving is the root of suffering, and craving doesn't just mean desire for pleasure. It also means the restless need for explanation, for certainty, for neat endings. The mind hates loose threads. It wants to tie every knot, to finish every story, but life rarely offers that. People leave without saying goodbye. Words remain unsaid. Decisions are made without your understanding, and the more you chase those echoes, the more they haunt you. Think of a canyon. You shout into it, and your voice comes back, distorted, fading with each return. No matter how many times you call, the canyon never answers with truth, only with repetition. That's what chasing closure feels like. You keep shouting into the past, expecting clarity, but all you get is your own voice thrown back at you. Take a slow breath now. Inhale deeply, exhale softly. Whisper to yourself, I release the need for closure. I do not need every answer to be at peace. Notice how those words land. There's a softening, maybe even resistance, but the seed is planted. Closure is not something given to you, it's something you create. It's not about getting the final word from someone else. It's about choosing the final word for yourself. It's not about understanding every why. It's about deciding that your healing matters more than explanations, that you can live without every question answered. If this truth feels real to you tonight, share it in the comments. Write, I create my own closure. Your words might give someone else permission to stop shouting into their own canyon. Here's a gentle practice for the moments when you feel haunted by echoes. Place both hands over your heart. Imagine all the unanswered questions resting there, heavy and restless. As you inhale, feel yourself holding them with compassion. As you exhale, imagine them dissolving into mist drifting away. You don't need to know everything, you only need to breathe through it. And slowly, the mind learns that peace isn't found in answers. It's found in acceptance. In knowing that the story may be unfinished, but your life continues. That the silence may never explain itself, but you can still live fully within it. Take another breath. Inhale. Exhale. Imagine the canyon again. Instead of shouting, you sit quietly, listening to the wind move through. The echoes fade on their own. The silence becomes less haunting, more spacious, and in that space, you discover something surprising: freedom. This is the wisdom of letting go of closure. It's not easy. It feels unnatural at first, but when you stop chasing echoes, you stop being trapped in the past. You return to your own life, your own breath, your own path. And yet, even when we begin to release those echoes, another shadow often lingers: regret. The heavy voice inside that says, I should have done more. I should have known better. I should have been different. Regret can weigh as heavily as grief itself, which is why, next, we'll step into how to meet regret, not with shame, but with redemption, turning the weight of the past into fuel for a gentler tomorrow. Regret and redemption. Regret is a quiet shadow. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers in the stillness of the night. You should have done more. You should have spoken up. You should have been different. And once regret starts its chorus, it can feel endless, looping through your mind until peace seems impossible. But Buddhist wisdom shows us another way to meet regret. Not as a punishment to endure, but as an invitation to live differently now. Why does regret hurt so deeply? Because it ties you to a version of yourself that no longer exists. You look back at choices made with less experience, less awareness, less strength, and you hold them against the wiser self you've become. You punish the old you with the knowledge of the new you. But the past version of you did not have what you carry now. Regret is often misplaced judgment. Take a breath. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. Whisper softly. I forgive the person I was. They carried me here. They did the best they could with what they knew. Let that truth soften the weight inside your chest. Redemption in this practice doesn't come from rewriting the past. It comes from transforming the present. Every time you notice regret rising, you have a choice. You can sink back into the loop, or you can let it fuel a new action. Maybe you call the person you once hurt. Maybe you speak the kindness you once withheld. Maybe you simply decide to live with more gentleness moving forward. In this way, regret becomes not a chain, but a teacher. Imagine regret as a signpost on the path. It doesn't exist to trap you. It exists to guide you, to say, here is where you strayed, here is where you can walk differently now. If you see it this way, regret loses its sting. It becomes a compass pointing toward redemption. If this resonates with you, write it in the comments. You might type, "Regret is my teacher," as a way of claiming the shift. Your words could remind someone else that they don't have to stay stuck in the shadow. They can use regret as fuel for change. Here's a simple practice. Think of one regret, maybe something small. Instead of replaying it, ask yourself, what is one action I can take now, however small, that brings light into this place? It doesn't need to fix the past. It only needs to honor the lesson. Then breathe it in. Inhale the lesson. Exhale the shame. Let the past feed the present, not drain it. Another breath now. Inhale. Exhale. Imagine placing all your regrets in a small box. See yourself thanking each one for its lesson. Then picture setting the box down on a river, letting it float away. The lessons remain in you, but the weight no longer needs to. Regret isn't proof of your failure, it's proof of your growth. You only regret because you've evolved enough to see a better way. That very awareness is redemption already. When you live with that truth, regret becomes less of a wound and more of a doorway. And as you rest deeper tonight, remember, you don't need to wait for forgiveness from the world to move forward. Forgiveness begins with you. It begins with breathing gently into the places that ache and whispering, "I will live more kindly now." This path of release brings us closer to another heavy burden we all carry. The weight of expectations, not just regrets for the past, but the endless pressure for how life should unfold in the future. And that, my friend, is where we'll journey next. The weight of expectations. Expectations are heavy things. Sometimes they sit on your shoulders quietly, so familiar you don't even notice them at first. Other times they press down so hard you can barely breathe. They come from family, from culture, from your own perfectionist voice. They say things like, "By now, I should be further along. My relationship should look like this. My life should have turned out that way." And each should piles on top of the last until you feel like you're carrying a mountain. But here's the truth. Expectations are not reality. They're stories. They're mental contracts you've signed without realizing it. Agreements with a version of life that never promised to show up the way you imagined. When life doesn't match the script, suffering appears, not because life has failed, but because the script was never guaranteed. Buddhist teachings remind us of a different path. Instead of clinging to, "It should be this way," we can soften into, "It is this way." That shift, small as it seems, changes everything. It turns a weight into a release. It lets you meet life as it is, not as your mind insists it must be. Take a breath now. Inhale gently. Exhale slowly. Whisper to yourself, "I release the shoulds. I meet life as it is." Notice how even saying the words creates space in your chest. Think of expectations as invisible chains. They keep you tethered to an image of yourself, an image of others, an image of life that may never exist. But the moment you see those chains clearly, you realize they were never locked. You can slip out at any time. You can stop measuring yourself against illusions. Of course, this isn't easy. The world constantly tells you what success should look like, what happiness should look like, what love should look like. It's a noisy chorus. But each time you pause, each time you breathe, each time you release a should, the chorus fades a little. And in the silence that follows, your own truth becomes audible. If this feels real for you tonight, share it in the comments. Write one should you're ready to let go of. Maybe it's about your career, your body, your relationships, or your path. Naming it can be a powerful act of release, not just for you, but for someone else reading who needs permission to put down the same weight. Take another breath with me. Inhale deeply. Exhale softly. Imagine each should written on small stones, tucked in a backpack you've been wearing for years. With every exhale, picture yourself setting one stone down. Feel your body grow lighter as the pack empties, until finally you can stand tall again, unburdened. Expectations will always try to creep back in, but when they do, you'll remember the practice. You'll remember the breath. You'll remember that peace comes not from forcing life to meet your script, but from meeting life as it is. And when you live this way, something beautiful unfolds. Life begins to surprise you again. Freed from the weight of expectations, you notice joy in unexpected places. You discover possibilities you never planned for. You stop demanding perfection and start receiving reality. This is where the teachings guide us next. Because once you set down the weight of should, you begin to see how growth actually happens. Like a seed in the earth, not rushed, not forced, but nurtured at its own pace. And that is the lesson waiting for us in the story of the seed and the rain. The seed and the rain. Imagine a tiny seed buried in the soil. At first, it looks like nothing. Just a small speck hidden in the dark, unseen, unnoticed. You might even doubt it will ever grow. But within that seed lies everything it needs to become a tree. What it doesn't need is constant digging, constant checking, or constant pressure to sprout faster. What it needs is space, time, and the right conditions, the warmth of the sun, the softness of the rain. This is the way growth works in your life, too. Yet so often, we try to force ourselves to bloom. We load ourselves with expectations. I should be further by now. I should have figured it out already. I should be stronger, calmer, wiser. But a seed doesn't sprout by being scolded. It doesn't grow by being shamed. It grows when it's allowed to, when patience replaces pressure, when trust replaces control. Buddhist teachings call this gentle faith, the understanding that everything unfolds in its own time. Just as the rain falls when it will, just as the seed opens when it's ready, your life also has its own rhythm. And when you stop forcing and start trusting, you create the space for that natural unfolding to happen. Take a slow breath. Inhale deeply, exhale gently. Whisper softly, I am the seed. I will grow in my own time. I do not need to rush. Notice how those words release the tension in your chest, as if even your body recognizes the relief of being allowed to grow without demand. Think about your own path. Maybe there are places where you've been impatient, places where you've scolded yourself for not being further along. What if instead of demanding speed, you gave yourself compassion? What if instead of asking, why am I not blooming yet? You asked, what nourishment do I need right now? If this image of the seed resonates with you, share it in the comments. Write, I am the seed, as a reminder to yourself and others that growth is not measured by how fast you move, but by the roots you quietly grow in the dark. Here's a gentle practice to hold tonight. Imagine yourself as that seed, resting in the soil. Above you, the rain begins to fall. Not too much, not too little, just enough. Each drop is like an act of kindness, an encouragement, a breath of trust. Feel how the soil embraces you, how the rain nourishes you, how the warmth above supports you. You don't need to rush toward the surface. You only need to trust the process. And slowly, with time, the seed opens. Roots grow downward, steady and unseen. A small shoot breaks upward, fragile but determined. Life appears not because the seed forced itself, but because it surrendered to the rhythm already inside it. Your growth is no different. You don't need to compare your timeline to anyone else's. You don't need to measure yourself against expectations. You only need to keep breathing, keep trusting, keep receiving the small rains of kindness that arrive each day. Take another breath now. Inhale. Exhale. Feel the seed within you, quiet but alive, holding its potential, waiting for its moment. Trust that when the time is right, you will rise. And as you rest with this truth tonight, we'll move forward into another teaching. How to influence the world without control. Because just as a seed grows by being allowed to, not by being forced, the people in your life also blossom when you offer presence, not pressure. That is the lesson of skillful means, and that's where we'll go next. Skillful means influence without control. There's a teaching in Buddhism called upaya, often translated as skillful means. It's the art of guiding without forcing, of helping without controlling. Think of it like this. When you're trying to move a heavy boat, pushing against the current only exhausts you. But if you learn how to work with the water, to steer with its flow, the boat moves almost effortlessly. Influence works the same way. You don't need to push people into growth. You can help them discover it on their own by offering presence, patience, and gentle direction. So often we confuse love with control. We think if we can just convince someone, if we can just explain it better, if we can just show them the right path, they'll finally change. But control rarely inspires transformation. What inspires it is space. Space for someone to choose, to stumble, to realize, to awaken in their own time. Think of a teacher who doesn't simply hand over the answer, but asks the right question. At first, it feels frustrating. Why won't they just tell me? But eventually, when the answer dawns on you, it sticks. You own it. That's the essence of skillful means, planting seeds instead of forcing fruit. Take a slow breath now. Inhale gently. Exhale softly. Whisper to yourself, I can influence without control. I can guide without gripping. I can love without forcing. Feel how those words open the body, releasing the tightness that comes from trying to manage everything. Look at your own life. Is there someone you've been trying to change? Maybe a family member, a friend, a partner. What if instead of pushing, you offered space? What if instead of trying to fix, you trusted their process? Your calm presence, your consistent example, your gentle encouragement, that's often more powerful than any lecture. If this lesson resonates with you tonight, share it in the comments. Write about a place in your life where you're learning to guide without control. Your story might be the encouragement someone else needs to ease their grip. Here's a practice to hold on to. Picture yourself standing in a garden. Instead of pulling at the plants, demanding them to grow, you water the soil, you clear the weeds, you let the sun and then you wait. Growth happens not because you forced it, but because you created the conditions. People, like seeds, bloom when given patience and nourishment, not pressure. This doesn't mean you step back completely. Skillful means is not apathy. It's presence with wisdom. It's saying the right word at the right time, offering a hand when it's truly needed, holding silence when words would only harden resistance. It's influence that respects freedom. Take another breath. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. Imagine yourself walking through your relationships like that gardener, watering with kindness, offering sunlight with trust, and then letting things grow at their own pace. Notice the ease that comes when you stop trying to control outcomes. And as you rest deeper tonight, let this reminder stay with you. The greatest influence you have is not in controlling others, but in embodying peace yourself. That peace spreads further than any pressure ever could. This brings us to our next step. Because once you release the need to control others, the path becomes less about managing life and more about walking it, even when the road isn't clear. And so, we turn now to the practice of walking without a path, stepping forward in faith when the way ahead has not yet revealed itself. Walking without a path. There comes a moment in every life when the road disappears. You look ahead and see no clear direction. Maybe it happens after a job ends, a relationship shifts, or a dream falls apart. Suddenly, the map you've been following is gone, and you're standing at the edge of uncertainty. It feels terrifying. But in Buddhism, this very moment is seen as sacred because it's here, in the space without a clear path, that you discover what it means to truly walk. We spend so much of life clinging to maps. We crave instructions, step-by-step guidance, guarantees that if we do everything right, we'll arrive at safety. But life doesn't work like GPS. It unfolds like a forest. Sometimes there is a trail, sometimes there is only open ground, and sometimes you realize the path is made only by walking. Take a slow breath with me now. Inhale deeply, exhale softly. Whisper, I can walk even when I cannot see the path. Notice how those words shift the body. The fear doesn't vanish, but a new steadiness appears underneath. That steadiness is trust. Trust doesn't mean you know the outcome. It means you keep moving anyway. One step, then another. Trust says, I don't need to know the whole road to take the next step. That's how the Buddha himself lived, walking into uncertainty with nothing but awareness as his guide. Think about a time in your life when the path vanished. Maybe it was painful. Maybe it was liberating. Maybe both. Looking back, you can see that even without a map, you made it here. Each step carried you forward. The road appeared because you were willing to walk it. If this resonates with you, share it in the comments. Write the words, I will keep walking, as a reminder that even in uncertainty, you are not stuck. You are moving. And movement itself is a form of faith. Here's a gentle practice for when you feel lost. Close your eyes. Imagine standing at the edge of a dark forest. The trail ends. You don't know what lies ahead. With each inhale, picture yourself gathering courage. With each exhale, picture yourself taking one small step, not the whole journey, just one, then another. Over time, you realize the forest is not empty. The path appears where your feet have been. Walking without a path doesn't mean drifting aimlessly. It means staying present enough to notice the ground beneath you, the air around you, the breath inside you. It means trusting that life unfolds not all at once, but step by step. Take another breath now. Inhale, exhale. Feel yourself becoming lighter as the need for certainty loosens. Notice the relief of not needing to control the whole map. You only need the courage to move. And as you rest deeper into this truth, know this. Every great journey begins not with a clear trail, but with a single step into the unknown. And when you walk without a path, life has a way of surprising you with beauty you never could have planned. This is where we'll go next. Because once you learn to walk in uncertainty, the silence itself begins to speak. Just like a bell ringing in the stillness, wisdom arrives when you stop filling the air with noise. That is the lesson waiting for us now. The bell rings in silence. Imagine a bell hanging in a quiet temple. It doesn't make a sound until someone strikes it, but when it does, its voice lingers in the air, clear and steady, long after the initial strike. What makes the bell's song so beautiful is not just the metal or the shape, it's the silence around it. Without silence, the sound would be swallowed up. Without space, there would be no echo. This is the hidden teaching. Wisdom speaks most clearly when the noise has settled. Our lives, though, are filled with noise. Not just the literal noise of traffic, phones, and endless notifications, but the noise of our own thoughts. The mind is always striking itself like a frantic bell, plans, worries, arguments replayed. In that constant clanging, clarity cannot be heard, which is why silence is not emptiness. It's the space where truth reveals itself. Buddhist practice often returns to this principle. Stop filling the air with constant doing and listen instead. In silence, you begin to notice the wisdom that has been waiting all along. The body whispers where it holds tension. The heart whispers what it truly longs for. The breath whispers that you are still here, still alive, still whole. Take a slow breath now. Inhale deeply, exhale softly. Whisper to yourself, I will let silence teach me. I will let stillness ring like a bell inside. Notice how even a moment of quiet opens a door within you. This is why meditation often begins with a bell. The sound marks the end of chatter and the beginning of listening. Each ring is an invitation. Come back. Be still. Allow the silence to speak. And the more you practice, the more you realize that the bell never truly stops. Its echo is always inside you, waiting beneath the noise of daily life. If this image speaks to you tonight, share it in the comments. Write, I hear the bell, as a reminder that wisdom is always waiting in silence. Your words may be the gentle nudge someone else needs to pause and listen to. Here's a simple practice. Sit quietly for a moment, wherever you are. Imagine the strike of a bell. Hear the sound in your mind, deep, resonant, lingering. Stay with it as it fades. Then notice the silence left behind. Don't rush to fill it. Just sit in it. That silence is not empty. It's full of presence, full of clarity. The more you allow silence, the more you begin to hear life differently. Conversations feel less rushed. Decisions feel less frantic. Even ordinary sounds, the hum of a fan, the rustle of leaves, the beat of your heart, become reminders that silence isn't absence, but awareness. Take another breath. Inhale. Exhale. Imagine yourself as the bell. Each inhale fills you with potential sound. Each exhale is the release, the vibration, the echo into the quiet. You don't need constant striking to prove your presence. Your stillness is enough. This is the paradox. Silence often feels uncomfortable at first, like something missing, but stay with it long enough, and you'll see it for what it truly is. An old friend, a teacher, a doorway into the present moment. And as you rest with this tonight, notice how silence itself can cradle you towards sleep. The mind softens, the breath slows, the body surrenders. And in that surrender, the world feels lighter. From here, our journey leads naturally into the next teaching. Because once you learn to let silence hold you, you begin to meet endings differently. Just as a bell fades into stillness, every chapter in life eventually falls quiet, and learning to accept that, like the falling leaf, is the next step on our path together. The falling leaf. Picture a single leaf drifting from the branch of a tree. It doesn't cling, it doesn't resist. It lets go when the time comes, and the air carries it gently to the ground. The tree doesn't mourn. It knows this is the way of things. Seasons change, leaves fall, and in time, new ones grow. This simple image holds a profound truth. Every ending is also a part of life's natural rhythm. But for us, endings often feel unbearable. A relationship closes, and we ache for what once was. A chapter of life ends, and we long for it to continue. Even the smallest endings, the final page of a book, the last night of a vacation, the goodbye after a gathering, can stir a strange sorrow. We want to freeze what is fleeting. We want to hold the leaf on the branch forever. Yet clinging doesn't stop the fall. It only steals our peace. Buddhist wisdom invites us to see endings differently. Impermanence isn't a flaw in life's design. It's the very thing that makes renewal possible. If the leaves never fell, the tree could never rest, could never prepare for new growth. In the same way, our lives require endings to make space for beginnings. Take a slow breath with me. Inhale deeply, exhale softly. Whisper, I can let go like the leaf. I can trust the season of my life. Notice the soft release in your body as you speak those words. The shoulders ease, the chest loosens. This is the body's way of remembering that letting go is not death, but transformation. Think back to an ending in your life that felt devastating at the time. Maybe a job, a friendship, or a home you loved. At first it felt like loss, like the tree stripped bare. But looking back, did that ending not also create space? Did it not lead to something unexpected? Sometimes the soil of our lives must be cleared before new seeds can sprout. If this truth resonates with you, share it in the comments. Write, I will let the leaf fall, as a way of naming your own trust in impermanence. Someone else reading may need exactly that reminder tonight. Here's a gentle practice for your heart. Imagine yourself standing beneath a great tree in autumn. Watch the leaves drifting down, one by one. Each leaf carries a memory, an attachment, a moment that has passed. With each exhale, picture yourself releasing one leaf. Watch it spiral gently to the ground, soft, natural, inevitable. Nothing is lost. It becomes part of the earth, feeding the tree for the spring to come. Endings, when seen in this way, are not final. They are transformations. They are compost for future growth. What falls away now may be the nourishment for what will rise later. Take another breath. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. Imagine the seasons inside you, the times of growth, the times of rest, the times of letting go. Trust that each one has its purpose. Trust that the falling leaf is as sacred as the blooming flower. And as you rest with this tonight, let the image of the leaf soothe you. Let it remind you that endings don't need to be feared. They can be honored. They can even be beautiful. From here we move toward another teaching, one that grows naturally from this trust in impermanence, generosity. Because when you learn to let go, not only of seasons but of what you hold tightly, your hands become free. And in that freedom, you discover the joy of giving. That's the next step on our journey together. Generosity as freedom. There's a story often told in Buddhist circles about a monk who lived with almost nothing. A bowl, a robe, and a mat to sleep on. One night, a thief came to his hut. Finding nothing to take, the monk noticed his visitor looking disappointed. Instead of fear or anger, the monk simply offered his robe, saying, "Please, take this as a gift. I wish I could give you the moon as well." The thief, stunned, left with the robe, but the monk stayed behind, gazing at the moonlight, whispering softly, "How lucky I am that I still have this to give." The story isn't about poverty or sacrifice. It's about generosity, the kind that frees rather than depletes. Because when your heart is open, giving is not a loss, it's a release. It's the loosening of the grip that says, "This is mine. I must hold tightly. I cannot let go." Generosity, or dana, is considered the first perfection in Buddhism. Not because it's polite or noble, but because it untangles the root of suffering, clinging. Every time you give, whether it's time, kindness, attention, or resources, you remind yourself that your value isn't measured by what you keep. It's measured by how freely you can let things move through you. Take a slow breath now. Inhale deeply, exhale softly. Whisper to yourself, "When I give, I am free. When I release, I am lighter." Notice how your chest opens with those words. Giving isn't just for others. It heals the one who offers. Think of a time you gave something without expecting anything in return. A smile, a listening ear, a word of encouragement. How did it feel? Chances are it didn't drain you. It filled you. That's the paradox of generosity. The more you give, the more abundance you feel, because your heart learns that its worth is never in shortage. If this truth resonates with you tonight, share it in the comments. Write, "Giving sets me free." Your words might spark someone else to offer kindness tomorrow, creating ripples you'll never fully see, but that matter deeply. Here's a practice for tonight. Imagine your hands cupped, holding small stones. Each stone represents something you've been clinging to. Your time, your money, your attention, even your affection. Now, with each exhale, picture yourself opening your hands, letting one stone fall. Feel the relief in your body as you release it. Notice how your hands are lighter, freer, ready to hold nothing at all. Or maybe something new. Generosity doesn't mean giving beyond your capacity. It doesn't mean draining yourself dry. It means offering from a place of freedom, not fear. When you give because you choose to, not because you must, the act itself becomes nourishment, both for you and for others. Another breath. Inhale gently. Exhale slowly. Imagine sending a silent blessing to someone in your life. No one needs to know. You don't need credit, just the quiet gift of goodwill. This too is generosity. When you begin to live this way, giving becomes less about losing and more about living. You realize you don't need to hoard moments, possessions, or affections. The more freely you give, the lighter you walk. And in that lightness, peace grows. As you let this truth settle, notice how it connects to everything we've explored so far. Letting go of storms that aren't yours. Trusting the path of others. Accepting impermanence. Each step has been training you to release. Generosity is simply the next natural expression of that release. And from here, our journey flows towards something even more intimate, the breath itself. Because once your hands and heart are free, you discover that the simplest gift, the one always with you, is the act of breathing. And learning to see the breath as refuge is where we'll go next. Breath as refuge. The simplest refuge is the one you already carry, your breath. It's so ordinary that you barely notice it most of the time, yet it is the one constant companion you've had since birth. Through every storm, every loss, every joy, every night you've lain awake, your breath has been there. Steady, patient, waiting for you to remember it. When everything feels unstable, the breath is your first doorway back to peace. Buddhist teachers often remind us that the breath is both anchor and shelter. Anchor because it keeps you from drifting too far into past or future. Shelter because no matter what happens outside, the breath offers a safe place to return inside. You don't need special tools. You don't need the perfect conditions. All you need is to pause, to notice, to follow one inhale, then one exhale. Take a slow breath now. Inhale deeply. Feel the coolness as the air enters. Exhale gently. Feel the warmth as it leaves. Whisper softly, "My breath is my refuge. I am safe here." Notice how even a few seconds of attention softens the body, lowers the shoulders, slows the pulse. The beauty of using breath as refuge is that it's always available. When anger rises, you can breathe. When grief overwhelms, you can breathe. When joy feels too fleeting, you can breathe. The breath doesn't erase what you feel, but it steadies you so you don't drown in it. Think of the last time you were anxious. The breath became shallow, fast, almost invisible. The body forgot it had a built-in tool for calm. But the moment you slowed down, the nervous system remembered. The storm didn't vanish, but you realized you were more than the storm. If this teaching touches you tonight, share it in the comments. Write, "Breath is my refuge." Your words may remind someone else that they don't need to wait for peace. They can return to it right now with the next inhale. Here's a simple practice for when sleep feels far away. Place one hand on your chest and one hand on your stomach. Inhale gently through the nose, letting the lower hand rise as your belly expands. Exhale through the mouth, letting the air leave slowly, as though you're setting down a heavy weight. Repeat this 3 times. Feel how the body softens. Feel how the mind steadies. Take another breath with me now. Inhale slowly. Exhale fully. Each inhale is like coming home. Each exhale is like releasing baggage at the door. The more you return to this rhythm, the more your body remembers. Safety is not something outside you. Safety is here in every breath. And since we've been walking together through so many of these teachings, I want to pause here for a gentle reminder. If you've found peace in these words, if these nightly journeys have given you calm or rest, I invite you to subscribe to this channel and tap the bell. Not because you have to, but because it's one small way to keep this refuge alive for yourself and for others who might need it. As you settle deeper into the breath tonight, notice how simple it is, how trustworthy it is. You don't have to control it. You only have to return to it. In returning, you remember that refuge is never far away. And as we continue, we'll move into another image just as gentle, the candle and the darkness. Because once you learn to rest in the breath, you begin to see that you don't have to fight the dark. You only need to shine quietly within it. That is the teaching waiting for us next. The candle and the darkness. Picture a single candle in a dark room. The flame is small, quiet, and steady. The darkness around it is vast, stretching into every corner. But notice something important. The candle does not try to chase the darkness away. It does not struggle or shout. It simply shines, and in doing so, the darkness is no longer complete. That's the lesson here. You don't need to fight the dark. You only need to shine within it. So much of our suffering comes from believing we must conquer what feels overwhelming. We think, I have to eliminate every fear before I can rest. I have to fix every problem before I can be at peace. But peace does not wait for perfection. Peace comes when you realize that even a small flame is enough. You don't need to destroy the darkness to find safety. You only need to remember your light. Take a slow breath now. Inhale deeply. Exhale softly. Whisper, I am the candle. I am steady in the dark. Feel the relief of not needing to do battle anymore. Feel how the shoulders ease when you realize you don't have to solve everything tonight. You only need to let your presence glow. Think of the people in your life who have been candles for you. Maybe a teacher, a parent, a friend. They didn't take away your struggles, but their calm presence made the darkness less frightening. That's what your light does too. You don't have to carry others' storms. You don't have to burn yourself out. Just being steady, just being present is often enough to shift the whole atmosphere. If this image speaks to you, share it in the comments. Write, I will shine quietly, as a reminder that your light is enough. Your words may encourage someone else who feels swallowed by the dark. Here's a practice for tonight. Close your eyes and imagine holding a candle. See the soft glow flickering but never fading. Picture the flame inside your chest, warm and steady. With each inhale, the flame grows brighter. With each exhale, it spreads calm through your body. Notice how the flame does not fear the darkness. It simply exists, and that is its power. The candle teaches us something else too. Its flame is small, but when shared, it multiplies. One candle can light another without losing anything of its own. Generosity, kindness, calm. These are flames you can offer freely. Each time you smile, listen, or breathe with someone, you pass the flame along. And in this way, the darkness never wins. Take another breath. Inhale slowly. Exhale gently. Feel the candle burning quietly within you. You don't need to make it brighter than it is. You don't need to force it, just let it glow. That glow is enough. That glow is your presence. And as you drift with this image tonight, notice how the body softens into the dark when the fear of it is gone. The room may still be quiet. The night may still be deep, but the flame within you holds steady. You are not powerless here. From this teaching, we move into our final step together. Because the candle reminds us of presence, but the mirror and the river remind us of identity itself. How the self can be both reflective and flowing, steady yet always moving. And that is where we'll go next, into the last chapter of this journey. The mirror and the river. Imagine looking into a mirror. It reflects everything without clinging. Faces, objects, light, and shadows all appear and vanish. But the mirror itself is unchanged. That's what your awareness is like. Thoughts come and go, feelings rise and pass, even identities shift, yet awareness remains, open and clear. The mirror doesn't argue with what it shows. It doesn't hold on. It simply reflects, and in that reflection, there is freedom. Now picture a river, always moving, never the same water twice. You can step into it today, and tomorrow it will already be different. That's what your life is like. Always in motion, always changing, flowing towards something larger than itself. The river doesn't resist its current. It doesn't fear the bends. It trusts the flow. Together, the mirror and the river remind us of two truths. You are both steady awareness and constant change. You are not fixed, yet you are never lost. Take a breath with me now. Inhale deeply, exhale softly. Whisper, I am the mirror. I am the river. I reflect. I flow. I let go. Feel how those words soften the edges of the self you've been gripping. This understanding loosens the need to define yourself so tightly. You don't have to be the same person tomorrow that you are today. You don't have to carry old mistakes like badges. You don't have to hold on to joy in fear of losing it. You can let each moment pass through you, like reflections in a mirror, like water in a river. Nothing is trapped. Nothing is wasted. If this teaching settles into you, share it in the comments. Write, I flow like the river, as a reminder that you are not stuck. You are always moving, always growing, always carried forward. Your words may offer peace to someone who feels trapped in their own story. Here's a gentle practice. Close your eyes and imagine standing at the edge of a flowing river. The water carries leaves, branches, light dancing on the surface. Each leaf is a thought, each branch a memory, each shimmer a feeling. Watch them pass. Notice how the river never tries to hold them. Then imagine a mirror at your heart, reflecting it all without judgment, without clinging. You are both the witness and the flow. And in that balance, peace appears. Another breath. Inhale, exhale. Notice how your body feels lighter when you stop gripping the idea of who you must be. Notice how your heart feels freer when you trust yourself to flow. The mirror shows you that you are not defined by any single moment. The river shows you that change is not the enemy. It is life itself. And so, as this journey together draws to its close, let the teaching settle in your body like a lullaby. The storms you don't need to carry, the guilt you can release, the love that trusts instead of controls, the breath as your refuge, the candle glowing in the darkness, and finally, the mirror and the river, reminding you that you are both awareness and flow steady, yet never stuck. Take one last breath with me tonight. Inhale gently, exhale slowly. Let the body sink into rest. Let the mind drift like a river. Let the heart shine quietly like a mirror in the morning sun. You have walked far tonight, and now it is time to rest. Soften into the silence. Let the teachings cradle you, and if sleep comes, let it carry you kindly. And if you're still awake, let yourself linger here a little longer, knowing that peace is already within you. This is where our story ends for now, but the journey never really ends. Because each night, each breath, each step is another chance to return, another chance to let go, another chance to rest in who you already are. End of script. Sweet dreams.